Hello, my name is Lucas, this is a bit of lit, and I would like to talk about Operation Moonglow, A Political History of Project Apollo, which is by Teasel, Muir-Harmony, the curator of the Project Apollo collection at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, and she teaches at Georgetown University. She's also the author of Apollo to the Moon, A History in 50 Objects, and a contributor to the television series Apollo's Moonshot. And she lives in Washington, D.C., according to Google Books. Anyway, this is, like I said, a political history of Project Apollo. It follows NASA from Eisenhower's presidency through Nixon's presidency, which is where it gets its name from this this tour that came after the cosmonauts came back from the moon landing, and talked about the experience, talked about all the progress made technologically and these kind of things. It is something that is strange to me to consider that Nixon was the president at this time. I always did not put I never put the timeline together. I always thought it was Lyndon B. Johnson who was president. And I would say largely that most of the effort for this Project Apollo, probably should be credited to Kennedy and to Johnson's administration, though Nixon, I suppose, does get the credit in some way, and it does mention how Nixon did try to take the shine from that and lay it onto his foundation for his presidency, because he had learned that you should have some kind of historic thing so that people remember you well and you have a legacy and this kind of thing. And apparently the New York Times discredited him for as unseemly for doing this kind of thing. And then they were barred from press conferences at the White House. Oh, how things don't really change. Anyway. It goes through the Eisenhower presidency, and it talks a lot about the events between the Soviet space program and American space program, but it also talks about the political use of these space programs, and particularly America's, and how it was used to project power, and also to have other countries think fondly of America, because don't look at the problems we have with civil rights or with the Vietnam War. Just focus on the fact that we are sending people to space. Isn't that wonderful? Because this is a product of the Cold War. It gets kind of ugly in this communism versus capitalism projection of which system makes the best scientists. It also, besides being a foreign policy issue, it's also besides being an international issue, foreign policy issue, it's a domestic policy issue. We had riots at the time for a lot of reasons, all throughout these presidencies, especially relating to the Vietnam War and civil rights issues, like I said. And it was used as propaganda anytime, Nixon or Johnson or Kennedy or whoever needed to look good. They would align certain actions that they took nearby, or, speeches that they would give near to the Apollo project launches, and I don't know why that word took me so long to come to, but it does not focus just on the US and the USSR. It also focuses on how European nations felt about these kind of things happening in the Eastern Bloc and the Western countries, Western Europe, and African nations, and who are now being decolonized, and they have new countries, and there's new diplomats for these new countries. And it was interesting, there was a part that talked about these African diplomats in DC having a hard time finding housing because of the color of their skin. And we have serious civil rights issues. Thoroughly unimpressed. And America has this idea, well, why don't we just send some African Americans to Africa to talk about the merits of our program? Also, Latin American countries as well, and different countries in Asia, and all these kind of things. All these countries around the world, and what their leaders and what their people thought about this and that, and everything related to the space race and American accomplishments. Also, what's really interesting is, of course, it focuses on how language was used by American diplomats to discuss these achievements by American scientists in NASA and etc. How can we project our power without isolating people from us, without being too nationalistic, to make it seem like we think of it as a human achievement, like maybe if we can go to space, we can go to the moon, we can bring peace on Earth. And, you know, using language to make it a man's accomplishment rather than American accomplishment to curry favor. And I just found that fascinating, personally. Not something I had ever really considered. Construction is now starting to happen. I don't have much else to say, but it's a good book. I recommend it. It comes out November 24th of this year, so I liked it. Thank you. Goodbye.